Welcome back. Merry Christmas from the folks at A.G. Hines Company. Anna, Jacob, Alex, and Father Gordon. They all hope you have a wonderful holiday and a spectacular Christmas tomorrow. A.G. Hines Company, we appreciate them being a part of this show each and every week, as I do these gentlemen. Let me introduce Will West right down there. Of course, you know Ryan. He was just here. Marlon Walls, loved the Christmas coat, man. Loved it last year, loved it this year. And right there, Bob Hodge in his Christmas sweater. There's a story we don't have time for.
We only have an hour and a half.
But Bill Claiborne, if he's watching, he'll know the story and like that sweater. All right. NIL was expected to turn the world on its head. That was the idea. I wanted to see if it did or not. So what I did was I went back and looked at 24/7 Sports composite rankings at the end of each signing class. So the numbers you're about to see, there's a caveat, an asterisk that's a little off. But the first group of numbers, 2015 through 2021. That's the last 7 years pre-NIL. Let's go ahead and put those up there. That was your average top 20. All right, for those 7 seasons pre-NIL, Tennessee averaged, they were the 14th best class. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, 1, 2, 3. Just look at those schools, okay? Now, I went back, I wanted to see how much it's changed. So we've had 3 years of signing classes with NIL. Let's take a look at how it's changed. Those will be at the bottom. Okay, the teams in red are outside the top 20 now. At the bottom of those last 3 years, the teams in green moved in. And that should say, it says at the bottom 2021 through 2023. That's a typo. 2022 through 2024. This is the 24 class. So the numbers are right. The caveat is wrong. But you see, NIL has come in. Alabama, the top 3 schools, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, they're still the top 3 schools. 16 of the top 20 schools stayed put. USC, Washington, Ole Miss, and Nebraska dropped out. Michigan, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky dropped in. Tennessee went from number 14 to number 13. Bob Hodge, reaction to the impact of NIL.
Well, the impact of the NIL, I think, got overblown at Tennessee because of Nico. It came out about, a year and a half ago more that he was the $8 million man. Woohoo, we can outspend everybody. And at the time, and you and I talked about it, why was Tennessee going to be able to spend more, do better than all these other schools? It just didn't make any sense. So I think it's kind of settled in about the way you would expect it to. The good schools that recruited solidly before, and I think Tennessee, by those numbers, has always been a solid recruiting school, they're still solid. The schools above them are still above them. And I just kind of think that, okay, NIL has its impact, but being Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State still has an impact too.
Well, I think you nailed it that, there were articles written here and everything that,
we're ahead of the game, we're better, it's great.
Once you allow the Tennessee fan base, the wild, rabid fan base to throw their money into it, it's like, yeah, but Ohio State's got a wild, rabid fan base too. So does Texas, so does Ohio, these other schools. And by the way, I should mention, the 4 that dropped out, barely dropped out. The 4 that moved up, were just barely out to begin with.
The biggest surprise is Kentucky moves up because I would have thought everybody would have gave every nickel to their basketball player.
Very interesting. Thoughts on the impacts of NIL? You've seen it as a high school coach.
Right.
You know how it can impact a single player, but overall, are you surprised at all that it's the same schools?
I think the biggest thing you see when you look at that list is what you do on the field still matters. I think the top players understand, hey, the end goal is the NFL.
Yeah.
The college experience, what I'm doing on the field, what my experience looks like in college. I think that's the biggest thing I see. I think the biggest thing from an NIL standpoint is the transfer portal. I think you can swing a couple guys that way that's coming from the big schools that's not playing. Now you can go to another roster, go help out. But I think from a high school standpoint, it still matters what you do on Saturday for those top guys.
Well, I think the 3 schools at the top, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, if I said to you, what are the 3 pro factories that just crank guys into the NFL, it would be
those.
Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Will West, impact of NIL. You got any takeaways from what you saw?
I think that everybody has money. Now, I do think Tennessee started out ahead of the curve, but I think some other schools caught up with them because they have money too, and especially there are hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, right? So if you are behind, you're going to spend the money to make sure you get caught up to get those types of players. I think when I look at that list, one thing that stands out to me is winning and then good recruiters on your staff, because I think LSU dropping so far on that second list to me was probably because do you want to play for Brian Kelly and get screamed at all the time, or do you not want to play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go somewhere else make the same money and not have to get screamed at by Brian Kelly all the time. Things like that, I think, play into it a little bit as well, quality of life.
Ryan, I'll let you wrap it up and tell us where we were wrong, what we were right. Because when you go back, when that story, David Ubben of The Athletic was the first one to really break the story about the collectives. Nobody else really had seen that on a national scale, and everybody freaked out. And Tennessee was ahead of the game with Spire Sports and the collective here. And you came on our show, Radford, and said, it's a good lead now, but it may not last. I said, yeah, better take advantage of this year. And he said, it may not last till December. and you were right. Not that there was anything wrong with Tennessee's process or the collective or anything, just that everybody else is going to get their crap together.
Yeah.
What did we miss in our discussion, or did we miss anything?
I don't know. I think we covered a lot of it. Marlon, I think, explained it very well. Out of high school, I think you see a lot of players make decisions based on who can get them to the NFL. I think that comes into it more. A lot of times with the transfer portal, though, players are established. They already are good players. They feel like they're on their way to the NFL anyway. Then it's more about money a lot of times. So that's, I think, very accurate. I think Will's point, too, Tennessee was ahead of the game early on. Part of that was Tennessee was one of the first schools to figure out you could make something called a collective. And they figured that out first. Whenever that legislation came down or the court ruling came down, it opened the floodgates for all this. Tennessee kind of figured out what was possible as a result of that, and they got ahead in terms of fundraising. Other teams caught up pretty quickly, and yeah, the past 18 months, I think it's been a pretty level playing field. That's the biggest thing about those team rankings we looked at earlier. Not a huge gap between 3 and 13, 3 and 15. It is a very competitive landscape. Michigan's playing for a national title, number 15 class in the country. There's just everybody has a chance at good players now. That's the difference. And it's probably 1 through 25 that really have a chance at landing those top players.
All right, very good. When we come back, has Tennessee taken full advantage of the transfer portal? What is their strategy there? We'll talk money, we'll talk culture, we'll talk strategy of the transfer portal next. Going back on the Sports Source.